You can't build a new business with the same mind that built old problems. Welcome back to the Founder to CEO podcast. If you're new here, this channel is built for one kind of person, someone who is serious about building a business that can actually grow beyond them. Not just a business that pays the bills, but one that has meaning, structure, and a future, one you want to invest in. You're investing your time and your money, something that means something to you. Today's episode is part of a mini-series. It's called Discipled by the Internet. It consists of 3 episodes, 3 very different business conversations, but one thread running through all of them. The idea that the age of constant noise, constant input, and constant hustle, we have almost completely lost the ability to think clearly. And that loss is costing us our businesses, our health, and our peace. That sounds familiar to you? You're in the right place. In the last episode, we talked about Martha and Maria. We talked about how overwhelm sneaks up on the most capable, most committed, most well-intentioned founders. We talked about the brain dump, getting the noise out of your head and onto paper. We talked about stillness, inquiry, and choosing the one thing to go forward with. And I ended that episode with a promise. I said, once you've done the brain dump, once you've had the stillness, once you've heard what matters, you still have to change the way you think. Not just your to-do list, not just your schedule, the actual underlying operating system, your own. Because here's what I've seen with founders, and I've seen it over and over and over. You can do the brain dump, you can clear the list, you can set the priorities, and 3 weeks later, you're right back where you started. Same overwhelm, same avoidance, same overcommitment. And why? Because the external clutter didn't reach the internal wiring. I mean, you cannot build a new business with the same mind that built the old problems. And this is what Romans 12:2 is about. And I want to spend this episode going deep into what it actually means, practically, not theologically. Let's go. Last week, we talked about how overwhelm sneaks up on founders. We talked about the brain dump, and in this community, we know a lot about that. We talked about stillness, inquiry, and choosing the one thing. Once you've done the brain dump and heard what matters, you still have to change the way you think, the actual underlying operating system. In Romans 12:2, Paul writes, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." 2,000 years before neuroscience had the language for it, Paul was describing neuroplasticity. Here's what we know now about the brain. Every thought you think carves a neural pathway. There's a woman, a South African, that likens it to trees growing, Dr. Caroline Leaf. The more you think a particular thought, the deeper the pathway gets. Eventually, those pathways become so well-worn that the brain fires along them automatically, without your conscious decision. This is how habits form. This is how beliefs are ingrained into your daily life. This is how a founder who grew up in scarcity still makes financial decisions from a scarcity mindset, even when the bank account says otherwise. The pattern of the world, the relentless hustle narrative, the your value is your output story, or the rest is laziness belief. Rest is not laziness, guys. So if you're not growing, you're dying anxiety. These are deeply carved pathways in most high-performing people. They got carved over years of reinforcement, and they won't be uncarved by one good podcast episode. That's what schools teach, right? But, and this is the hope, they can be rewired. New pathways can be built over time. Brain is not fixed. Be transformed, Paul says. Transformed. Not tweaked, not adjusted, transformed. John Aldrich says something in Get Your Life Back that I keep coming back to. He talks about how in previous generations, the default human experience included significant amounts of silence and solitude. People walked to places. They sat in the evening without screens. They spoke together. They prayed together. Before anyone else was awake, they had their quiet time. The neural inputs were simpler. There was space for the mind to be quiet, for beliefs to be examined, for God to speak. We have eliminated all of that space. The phone is there from the moment we wake up. The podcast plays in the car. The TV goes on in the evening. The scroll happens at midnight, the doom scroll. We have replaced the silence, the very silence in which transformation happens, with constant content. We are being discipled. We are being formed by an algorithm, by social media and Netflix, by news feeds, by whatever emotional trigger gets us to engage. And the formation is not neutral. The algorithm is not mentoring you towards wisdom, rest, and clarity. Oh no. It's optimizing you for engagement, for reaction, for the next click and the next dopamine hit. The internet's a very effective discipleship tool. The question is, what is it making you into? Let's examine the 3 patterns that emerge and see which ones of these you've fallen prey to. Pattern 1, the productivity identity. The belief is, I am what I produce. My value is my output. I'm not moving, I'm falling behind. I have that belief, actually. The evidence it's running is you feel guilty when you rest. You're not relieved, you feel guilty. Check your email on Saturday morning just quickly. You described your vacation in terms of what you got done. Does that sound familiar when I get back? You feel most alive when you're busy. And where it came from? School systems that rewarded output. Work cultures that promoted the hardest workers. Social media that turns productivity into performance. A world that measures people by their contribution. But what it costs is your health, your relationships, your capacity for strategic thinking, which requires rest, not hustle. And ultimately, your business, because a founder operating from exhaustion makes bad decisions. The renewal, you are not what you produce. You were created before your output was required. Your value predates your first invoice. The business you're building is an expression of who you are. It is not the source of who you are. That shift, genuinely internalized, changes everything about how you lead. Okay, let's look at pattern 2, the scarcity default. The belief is there's not enough. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough opportunity, not enough me. If I don't grab it, I'll miss it. The evidence it's running, you say yes to everything because you're afraid of missed opportunity. You undercharge because you're afraid clients won't pay more. You work nights and weekends because you're afraid of what happens if you stop. What's the marketing version? You run ads in a panic rather than from a strategy. You post on social media from anxiety rather than intention. And you change direction every few months because each new idea feels like the one that will finally solve the scarcity. What's the renewal? The abundance is not a feeling, it's a conviction. And convictions are built, not stumbled into. They are built by evidence, noticing what you do have, what has come through, what has been provided. They are built by gratitude, which is not a sentiment but a discipline. And they are built by community, because isolation amplifies scarcity. And being surrounded by people who are building thoughtfully recalibrates your sense of what is possible. Let's look at pattern 3, the control compulsion. The belief is, if I let go of this, it will be done wrong. If I'm not involved, it will fall apart. The only person I can truly rely on is myself. The evidence it's running is that you're still doing tasks that should have been delegated 18 months ago. Your team can't make decisions without you. You are the bottleneck in your own business. The origin is that past experiences of being let down, of handing something off and it's gone wrong, of having to fix what someone else broke. Those experiences created the belief, and the belief created the behavior. But there's a cost to this. You can never take a holiday. You can never get sick. You can never focus on growth because you're too busy maintaining operations. The business needs you there every day, which means you haven't built a business. You've built a job. So what's the renewal for this one? Trust is a practice, not a feeling. You don't wait until you feel like trusting someone. You build trust incrementally with clear expectations, documented processes, regular check-ins. The SOP, the standard operating procedure, is not just a management tool. It's a trust-building tool. It externalizes the standard so that done to my standard becomes something other people can actually achieve. This next section is the most practical section of the whole podcast. So this is concrete, repeatable practices. I like practical stuff. So practice 1, the protected morning. Before the phone, before the email, before the news, before the first notification. 15 minutes is a minimum. 30 is better. An hour if you can protect it. In that window, read, pray, write, or just sit in silence. The content matters less than a practice. What you are doing is establishing a period of time each day where you are the one choosing your inputs, rather than the algorithm serving up what it thinks you want more of. Over time, this changes your baseline. The anxiety that most people wake up to, the immediate sense that they are already behind, begins to reduce. The creative thinking that requires silence starts to surface. The clarity that was buried under noise begins to emerge. Protect the morning, ruthlessly. It's not a luxury. It's the first act of renewing your mind. I've been following this for more than a year, and it's really making a difference in my life. Practice 2, the intentional consumption audit. Spend 1 week tracking what you consume. Not in a disciplined, restrictive way if you're not allowed to watch this and that. Just an honest observation. What podcasts are you listening to, and what patterns do you think they reinforce? What social media accounts do you follow? What emotions do they consistently produce in you? Comparison, anxiety, or inspiration and peace? What are you watching in the evenings before you go to sleep? Not whether it's high or low culture, but what does it leave you feeling? Are you energized, numbed, agitated? At the end of the week, make 2 lists. Column A is the inputs that leave you cleaner, clearer, calmer, more purposeful. Column B is the inputs that leave you more anxious, scattered, and numb. You don't have to eliminate column B overnight, but you do need to see it clearly before you can change it deliberately. It's very practical. Practice 3, the belief interrogation. Take one belief from the 3 patterns above, the one that most resonated, and write it at the top of a page. Then answer 3 questions in writing. Number 1, when did I first believe this? What experience taught me that this was true? Then question number 2 is, what does this belief cost me? In time, relationships, decisions I made from this place. And 3, what would be true instead if I decided to let this belief be wrong? This is not therapy. It's not quick, but it's the closest thing to renewing that Paul describes. The deliberate, intentional examination of a thought pattern, and you get to consciously choose to replace it with something else. It won't happen overnight. So just return to it every 7 days for a start if you're interested in change. You can go to it every morning for 7 days. Then you can stop and see. You can do it weekly, you can do it monthly, whatever you choose that you want to start with. But I think a weekly session that just makes it easy to turn it into a habit. So if you can do it weekly, it would be awesome. Then practice 4, the community of formation. You cannot renew your mind alone. It's not a weakness, it's a design feature. The patterns are described of productivity, identity, scarcity default, control, compulsion, were all formed in community. In schools, in family systems, in workplaces, in cultural narratives. Cannot be unformed in isolation. It's easy to decide stuff in isolation, but you need to be in community with people who are operating from different patterns, who rest without guilt, who delegate without anxiety, who build from abundance rather than scarcity. It will rub off, not immediately, but over time. The way the people around you think becomes part of the way you think. This is one of the reasons compassion-based community exists. Not just for accountability, though it does that. Not just for co-working, though it does that too. But for formation, for being in a room with people who are taking this work seriously and see the results. I want to make one specific application before we close. Because this series, what's it called again? Discipled by the Internet. This series, Discipled by the Internet. I want you to connect this to your business specifically, because the same patterns that run in your leadership run in your marketing. A founder operating from productivity identity runs marketing that's frantically active, posting every day, trying every platform, always doing something, but rarely strategic. A founder in scarcity default runs marketing that's desperate, discounting, chasing, under-positioning their offer. A founder with control compulsion never delegates their marketing, which means it never gets the specialist attention it needs to actually work, if it's done at all. Renewing your mind as a leader, learning to operate from clarity, strategy, and trust directly changes the quality of your marketing decisions. And if you want to understand digital marketing from that clear strategic foundation, rather than from the anxious, try everything mode most business owners are stuck in, the DigiWiz Academy course is built for exactly that. 5 modules, self-paced. Strategy first, tactics second. academy.digiwiz.co.za. Links in the description. In the next episode, the final one in the series, we're going to talk about what happens in the gap between the renewal beginning and the results appearing. Because there is a gap. You do the brain dump. You start protecting your mornings. You begin to see the patterns. And for a while, sometimes a long while, nothing looks different on the outside. And in that gap, the thing that kills most founders' progress is not a lack of strategy or a lack of effort. It's not a lack of potential either. It's discouragement. And next week, we are going to teach on that gap. Isaiah 41:10 has something to say about that. It's the most direct, most personal thing God says in the whole Old Testament to someone who's trying and not yet seeing the fruit. That's next. So subscribe that you don't miss it. I'll see you there.